bought probably in one of the worst areas at the market price with a property that there was no way that I could add much value to. I had a tenant in my property, didn't pay me any money for about a year. I'm just sinking loads of money into this property. That property would have made me say.
From that experience, what did you learn? Welcome back to another episode of the Property by Kazi podcast with myself, Kazi. Each and every week we have an amazing guest. And today we've got the amazing Lee Anderson. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm really good.
You see how I introduced you as amazing? Made sure that I said early. I wanted the energy from you today.
You sound like a professional boy. I was like, all right, that's what's happening there.
You know, they call me Mr. As Seen on TV now. But so you have been in property for the last 15 years. Founder of Lebern Limited, along with also the Genesis you're now working closely with, and then there's one more company.
Yeah. So there's a few other things, but the other main thing is a prop tech solution that we're bringing out. Okay. So it's at the early stages.
Okay, so you said, because sometimes we say property can be a little bit boring, but when you get to prop tech, that's when you get into the sexy stuff. So,
you call it sexy, yeah?
Yeah, prop tech's lovely. But let's really start with your journey into property. So 15 years, you've been in it for a while, but how did you actually get into property in the first place?
So it's actually a little bit longer, man, than 15 years, to be totally honest. Okay. So I bought the first property in 2005. Okay. I wouldn't really say I was in property then, but that's when I bought my first property and I was trying or whatever, watching Homes on the Hammer and all of that. So did you answer, how did I get into it?
I guess actually I've got a question from that. How did you know you wanted to own property? Like, were your friends buying property?
No, not then. No, not at all. How did I know? I don't know. I don't actually even know how it all came about. One thing that I suppose there was some correlation with was the first place I bought was really just following my dad. Like my dad bought a place in Southampton because my brother was going to university, and it just so happened that I ended up buying on the adjacent road. So I probably wouldn't have even thought about Southampton if it wasn't that my dad was buying something for my brother there. So there wasn't much, and then I can sort of justify why I chose Southampton in terms of like the size of the city, location to London, price, and all of those sorts of things. But really at that point, I was just following. I was just like, oh, my dad's bought here, I'll buy there. It's also affordable. I bought completely wrong in terms of like what I know now. So I bought probably in one of the worst areas at the market price with a property that there was no way that I could add much value to, right? So in terms of the career that I thought I was going to begin going into, I got it all wrong. But yeah, that was the first thing that we did.
So that was the first property. And I guess, when I look at people, there's always, a lot of times having the right people around you or seeing that other people are doing it that makes it feel possible. And is that maybe one of the reasons you now talk a lot more about property, obviously on social media as well?
Yeah, I suppose so. You know what? That we've become, and I say we, me and my friend Dean, right? We had conversations a couple of years ago, especially around when the George Floyd incident happened. There's a lot of talk about representation. So then I was finding myself in conversations around that where there's no one that looks like us from our backgrounds that are doing well in certain spaces. And I was like, no, I know loads of people doing well. And just from those conversations, what became quite apparent, it's not that there isn't loads of people, because there are. That doesn't mean we shouldn't want more and what the percentages are, but just in terms of people being there, I knew quite a lot of people. But that was my truth, and their truth was they didn't know or didn't see loads of people, right? So their truth was also a real thing. So then the conversation becomes about, like, if that is the case, is it important then to actually begin shining the light on people that are successful and are doing well in the spaces that come from us in different areas, in the medians that people are actually digesting information, right? And that was one of the reasons why it might have been at that time FFG and myself and a few other people began to be more visual.
Yeah, I think it's very important. I think particularly sometimes in different cultures, it's a case of, don't tell them and don't talk about money and this. But I think understanding that it's possible, seeing people, like you mentioned, that look like you, that are able to do things and have success, makes it feel that more achievable. So I think it's really important. I definitely think you should keep like, you know, shedding the light on all the good things that people are doing.
But you're one of the catalysts for that.
What do you know what my thing, and I've said this to people, like there was a few moments for me, and one of them was like a good friend of mine, her mum like still doesn't kind of like speak that much, like that's been very much at home, doesn't speak that much English. But because of like what a lot of, unfortunately, like my friends, her friends were doing, even though I've been in property for 8 years, because all they ever see me is in a tracksuit, they thought I'm up to no good like with the rest of them. And it was only that I was saying like, we really need to talk about these things just so people understand that there are so many different paths to go down and there's so many opportunities out there, you know, to make money and to do things. And then a lot of the good experiences that I've had off the back of joining social media, just randomly like running into somebody like in Brixton and them talking, I watched this podcast 2 years ago and now me and my partner have bought our first house. I think those little moments are amazing.
Yeah. But you came to a dinner not last time, about 2 years ago.
Yeah, so not this one, the one before I came to. Yeah.
So that was held by Io and Adiwali, right? So they approached me because I had the membership at 8 Club just to say, can I host it there? And when I attended, I was like, oh, look, this is an amazing thing that you guys are trying to do in regards to getting a room full of successful people in the real estate space. And the feedback from it was really good. Like, so then when Io reached out to me and said, Lee, I would love for you to be more involved in the sort of vision. I said, look, I'm for it because I like what you did there, but it has to be bigger than just like a networking event, right? Because I think there's a gap missing in regards to having a platform for people in the real estate space that are like seen like in the corporate space and that are doing well, because most people in their companies, if they might best be the one person that's in that space. So very rarely do they get to see loads of people that look like them, and they can also begin to feel like there's nobody else here, right? So I was like going back to the reason of having a platform and shining the light, and then the impact and the knockdown effect to other people. That's why we decided to create Genesis, right? Because then that network is a room full of people that we can shine the light on that are doing really well in the property space.
Yeah, no, and it's been really good. A lot of good experiences, and I think the value of networking and being around other people. Like yesterday, in fact, actually, I went for dinner with Adewale, I went for dinner with Rowan, and then another gentleman. It was nice to be in a place where I was the least experienced. Like I was the one that could learn from all of these people.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we have that sort of, like for me, I'm going to call it the South London syndrome. I'm just around everyone.
Yeah.
And it sounds great, but obviously to broaden those horizons, to see further opportunities, it's good to be able to create these rooms where, you know, there's people at all different stages, but there's an opportunity to teach someone, there's an opportunity to learn from someone. So yeah, I think it's a really good thing that it's been, you know, created. And I want to see, obviously, next year I'm going to make sure no Dubai, and I'm around and I'm in place to attend. If I can still get an invite, that's it.
We're going to do more often, man, because like, as I said, like, it was like a yearly thing, but we said like, we'll do it quarterly, and there's going to be a lot of other things that's coming that springs off that, right? So there's a lot of government contracts and so forth. So being able to feed those sort of opportunities into that conversation is really what it's about. So yes, it's about shine the light on people on the group, so people outside of the industry can see that there's success. I think that's really important. But then there's value of just normal networking from the people inside those rooms, like as you just mentioned. But then there should also be opportunities, right? So if there is excellence, then those opportunities for government contracts and so forth should also trickle down into that excellent category. So I'm not saying everyone should have that opportunity, but those that are at a certain level, of course, like that's the whole purpose of it. But people just don't know that those opportunities are there, and those opportunities don't know where to find those.
So it's bridging the gap and making those connections and being a connector.
Yeah, that's the aim of that. That's the aim.
Nice. Okay, so that's the Genesis space. But going back to now, so you said obviously bought your first home 2005.
Yeah.
Experience maybe wasn't what you thought it was going to be from watching Homes Under the Hammer.
It was a nightmare. Yeah.
Do you still own that home?
No, I sold that. Was it last year? Maybe a year or 2 years ago.
Okay.
But yeah.
So not too old. But so you owned it for close to sort of 15 to 17 years. So still a long time.
Long time.
And I guess from that experience, what did you learn, like in terms of investing in property going forward?
so much. So I made so much mistakes. For example, I had a tenant in my property, didn't pay me any money for about a year. I went through the process of wanting to get my property back, and I probably made every mistake. Like, first of all, listening to the person saying, "Yeah, I'm going to pay you next month. I'm going to pay you next month," and then just going through that and trying to work with the person to then realizing that's not going to happen. By the time that begins, we're probably 4 or 5 months of rent arrears. Then I try to figure out the legal process to doing that. I get that completely wrong in terms of when I get to the court stage, it just gets thrown out because I've done some mistakes in the paperwork. So then having to understand the importance of just making sure everything is done correctly, and also knowing that no one's there to hold your hand, really. Everything in property costs a lot of money. So so then if you're going to go like, in that situation, like when I haven't had any money, and at that time I didn't really have that much money, then the only way for that problem to be solved was to go down and get a solicitor, which also costs lots of money, right? So I was just like, I'm just sinking loads of money into this property. And at the time, that property was making me, like, would have made me say £400, £500 a month. So nothing crazy, right? So a lot of the lessons were learnt from that property in terms of, from a financial standpoint, making sure that your margins are right. Also understanding that actually things need to be, you need to know what you're doing so that if you make mistakes, time is very, very, very costly when it comes to property. And then also just from a property management standpoint, right? So not having those processes in place or not really understanding how to manage a property also led to some of the issues that was occurring. So all of those things were the things that kind of made me just sharpen up.
Okay. So that's what you learned. Then what was your sort of next step into property from buying the one in Southampton?
Then I started, I used to go to new build properties, right? And then I'd negotiate a discount based on me reserving a bulk amount, right? So 3 properties, 5 properties, whatever. So they would give 10, 15, 18% margin. And then I'd package the deal to say 5% gifted deposit, 3% legals, etc., etc. So package a deal for someone to come and buy. But again, I didn't really know anyone. I was quite young, didn't know anyone. None of my friends was really in a position to buy.
But that strategy sounds quite like technical. Where did you like even get the idea to try and deliver that?
Just thought it was common sense. I'll be honest, man.
Okay.
I just thought it was common sense.
You just saw an opportunity.
I just thought, I didn't even know if it was an opportunity. I just thought it might make it like, because the way I look at things is like, if you're going to buy one, it's going to cost one price. And if you're going to get bulk, it might be slightly cheaper, right? And if I can figure out that it's slightly cheaper and there's margin, then you can make money in the margin. I didn't know what the margins were going to be. I didn't know if it was possible. But I know property is the thing that we talk about, but it's also seen as like it's a product which is so different to everything else. But it's the same business mechanics, right? If I mean, it might be no, but it kind of makes sense to me. Like if I can reserve a couple, maybe I might get a slight discount.
I think that's something for people that kind of struggle with the idea of how to get into property. It's the same business in terms of if you buy at the right price, you work out what your costs are for turning A into B, and then the margins what's in between that in terms of what you can sell it for at the end. Or or if you're delivering a service, it's a service-based industry. It's property is just a type of business. But if you have business acumen, you should be successful in the property space as well.
Look, people ask me all the time, like, what made you think of that, or why did you do that? And there's like courses now on these things, but I didn't know anyone. I didn't know, so there was no touch point for me to go and get advice and stuff. So it was just like problem solving. Like, I don't have money. Okay, like if I was gonna like get in, I wanted to be in property. So, well, I didn't want to be in property, but I had bought a property, so my interest was property at that point, even though it was going wrong. So that was my interest. So then it just made me think, like, well, just ask the question. And then the question was positive. Then we had to figure out, okay, what does that actually mean? So now we know that we can get a 15% discount, but how do you actually structure that deal to make money for you, right? So we had to figure that out. And then but you just everything I did in that stage was just like asking the question, like speak to the solicitor. Okay, this is my intention. Like, how do we do this?
Okay. And you mentioned, was that just yourself or did you have a partner at that point?
No, it was just by myself.
Just you.
Just me
Okay.
running around with a phone.
That's it. Look, a lot of businesses, mine started with me driving around in my Honda Civic, like sand and cement in the back, everything.
Yeah. But that's probably the bad thing, isn't it? Like because I didn't have that many people, even though I created that structure for in myself, that it's like, oh, we can make money here, then I didn't know anyone to actually sell it to. So I told this story before, but I remember the first deal we did, I reserved 5 units, right? And I had to put a £500 reservation fee down for each one. So back then that was a lot of money for me. Like, so I had to put 2.5 grand down, and I can't remember the exact discounts, but I knew I was going to make, let's say 2 to 4% I would make off each property. And those, I remember at the time the properties were roughly about 200 and something thousand, which was over inflated because it's new build, right? But we're talking some time back. So I was going to make a couple of grand off each deal. So I remember I sold 2, but I couldn't sell the other 3 because I didn't know that. And I remember I was stressing so much because I didn't understand that I wasn't committed to buying these other 3 properties. I just put a reservation down. So in the worst case, I was just going to lose my grand and a half in worst case scenario. But I thought I was in for like 600,000. So I was stressing. I thought I was bankrupt. So, and then I started avoiding calls. I started like just putting my head into the sand, just not addressing the situation because I thought like, what have I got myself into? Not realizing. So when I did actually speak to them, and then realized they were over the moon because I've sold 2 properties for them, right? So in essence, I'm bringing nearly £500,000 to the table. They could care less about the other £300, the three other units. They actually gave my reservation money back, and was like, okay, like thanks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that taught me a lot of things back then as well.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a big life lesson in terms of just managing stress and communication.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
sometimes some of your biggest problems can be solved through a phone call. But
100%.
a lot of the time we panic so much, and then when you don't answer the phone first phone call, now you've had 5 missed calls.
Right.
It's got even bigger and even bigger, and
yeah.
you've ballooned this problem to the point that it's now something you don't even want to face and you want to run away from. And you could have just said, ran away, lost the relationship, lost your £1,500. But I guess facing it and actually saying, like, I'm going to communicate is why obviously things panned out in that place as well.
Well, I learned that I won't never do that again.
Yeah.
Because for weeks I was stressed, and it was just an easy solve. So from that point, I was like, no, I'll just address all things head on, because most of the things is a conversation.
And how long did you do that for in terms of the sort of packaging the new builds?
I'm not too sure. Let's say maybe a year or so.
Okay.
But it wasn't like intense. It's like, okay, like we done it, got that opportunity. I have another project that might come about. So it wasn't like a full time thing. It was like, okay, I'm learning and cutting my teeth in the game.
Okay. And then I know you worked for a short period or for about a year in retail banking. Initially, you were going to go into investment banking, but it was a restructure.
Yeah. So what happened there was a program that I got through on, and it was supposed to like streamline you to become an investment banker. But part of that process was you spent some time in retail banking learning that and sort of just understand the ropes. But whilst I was there, basically they had a whole shift round on in the company, and that program just became like dismantled. So then I was stuck in retail banking, and I was there for probably about a year and a half. I seem to, when I was an employee, after about a year and a half,
that's when you started to get itchy feet.
Yeah.
So then when did you start Lebern?
I started Lebern in 2013 as a company. We was doing what, let's call it guaranteed rent from 2008, 2009. And then from there, Lebern was started in 2013.
Okay. So really in the property management guaranteed rent space for over a decade now. Like sort of
long time.
12. Oh, that's 12. And I'm just trying to do maths now in my head. What did you say, 2008? Well, that's like 16 years then.
Yeah, long time.
Okay, yeah. So, and I guess at that point in time, it wasn't even really called guarantee rent so much. Or it wasn't really as an established term. It was very new.
I didn't even know about it.
Yeah.
Again, that just came about because if we go back a stage, I was doing bridging finance. So a friend of mine played football, and at that time, banks were trying to get, make them become their client, Coops, blah blah blah, trying to make them their client, and I was always with him. So I began to have good relationships with people in banks, and just so happened, just in conversation, someone was talking about the development that they was doing, and they had some problems with their loan. So I thought, let me just ask the question to see if I can help. And then it turned out that the rate that I was able to get was a really good rate. That person was over the moon, and it just kind of spiraled into other things from there. So I kind of fell in to doing development finance as a broker as such, to the point where we had I had quite a few going on, and then the market crashed. Because at that time I thought, I'm in the banks, right? So I'm always going to get paid. This is going to be good. I'm building a little reputation for myself. Right? This is going to be good, and that's going to be my journey. When the banks crashed, I was like, okay, this isn't going to be my journey. I thought I was going to have sort of good money, good guaranteed money coming in all the time. Was the option for me, and that's when I thought, well, if I can work with the local government, then that should be an assurance of money in a sense. Because at that time, let's call it a budding entrepreneur with my phone. So I'm looking for that sort of cushion, and that's where that came about. So then I was like, how can I work with local authorities? Again, my interest was property, so can I give them properties, and will they pay me for doing that? When I got into that conversation,
No, I was going to say time-wise as well, like 2008 post, major recession, a lot of, there were landlords that were literally, look, people are not paying their rent, posting keys back through the letterbox sort of thing, very much that time. And I think when I've listened to your story over last 20 minutes, one common denominator has been in terms of you finding opportunities just based on being in places and seeing opportunities and then taking action. So definitely. Whether it be that you said from the opportunity of packaging the properties, whether it be from facilitating the development finance, it was always a case of, there is an opportunity here, how can I facilitate it? Because if you can make somebody's life easier, you can get paid. And in that space, landlords are not getting paid. It's, if you say, okay, it's a not easier conversation as a proposition, I think it was a really good time to be able to maximize that as an opportunity.
Definitely. It was great timing for us.
And the reason, but it's not just a case of timing, it's a case of seeing an opportunity and being able to capitalize. And that's where we talk about like the entrepreneurial spirit of, everybody else is saying, recession, I'm going to have to stay in my house. But I guess maybe because you've gone through the head in the sand at one point at a really young age, seeing that, when there's problems, that's an opportunity to make money. Because when other people are scared, they always say most amount of millionaires are made in a recession. There's most opportunity when there's change. And when I speak to different entrepreneurs in different spaces, I always find that that's really like a common sort of trait, that where some people see problems, like you saw opportunities.
For sure. I do that. I didn't know that was a common thing. I didn't realize it was a thing for me, but that is true.
I just think it's like, the entrepreneurial spirit is that it's our job to make things work, not to look at why they won't.
I call it back against the wall. That's the thing I call it. It's like when your back's against the wall, like what do you do? Like some people kind of shy away from it, but I fully embrace that feeling.
Is that why you got into the boxing recently?
Just in case.
Making sure, like, listen, back against the wall, whether it's business or whatever else, I'm gonna fight my way out.
No, I do like the boxing, man. I do like it.
I just started, started like 4 weeks ago. So I trained this morning. My guy, big up, Beast really good fight, lovely guy. But I'm enjoying it. Like I'm buzzing.
What, on the pads and sparring?
So just started like on the pads, doing a little bit of like body sparring for now. Not ready to get hit in the face, trying to still make it good for TV. You know what I mean? But I'm enjoying it. I
haven't done no sparring. I'm like, to me it's just like fitness. I'm not trying to get into the ring really and do all that sort of stuff. But now, like the guy that I do mix with, he's like swinging back. I'm like, hold on, what are we doing? It's like, this is not how it's supposed to go.
So when I first started, he was like, so we're doing the first test. He's like, this is the intro. We're like, okay, track one. So today he wasn't really swinging, but it's like, it's like if you like drop your guard a little, which give you a little slap, a little tap, like, you know, hey,
this one
head
tap.
up.
I had to look at him like, bruv, come on, man.
Come on.
What are you doing?
But nah, you need it. You need it.
No, I like it, man. The reason why I like it a lot, it makes, when you're tired, you still have to think.
Yeah.
So I like it more for that. Like, you still have to think about what you're doing and take on the information.
Do you know one of the main reasons I like it is because I see correlation between business in that it starts out and they're just saying, right, jab, cross, jab, and then it's like, okay, then add your footwork in. Then it's add like a bit of movement in. Then it's the defense, and then now shots are coming back at you. So it's learning to deal with like the pressures of more things happening at once. I think there's, you know, you can sort of see the synergy between that in business.
I like it, man. I like that. And even when you're, as you said, when you're tired, it doesn't matter. Things are still happening. You got to deal with it.
Hey, listen, out of all PTs and coaches, boxing coaches don't care if you're tired. They don't care if you had a late night. Don't care if you're feeling. Tell you, I don't feel well. Go for up and come back.
They're a different breed, man. I see the way I go. They also do like MMA and jiu-jitsu, and I'm like, that looks like a different level of. Do you know craftsmanship?
I tried it a couple times.
Is it?
And I said, do you know what? It's like there's so many intricacies to it. And I don't want to mess up the mic because my videographer's going to mess you up. Whereas this thing where like we are doing groundwork and obviously people just do stuff to frustrate you. Okay. So he's rubbing his arm, like his forearm against my face. And I was thinking, I'm very close to biting you.
You know, with me, like everyone keeps telling me to do it. And I've got some friends that are doing really well with it or that are in it quite a lot. But everyone's like getting injured. Yeah. So I'm like, this doesn't sound like the sport I need to get into. Not at like the point that we're at. Like,
come over to paddle. Come over to the paddle side.
That sounds like more like what we're talking about.
Us over there.
Come hit the ball.
Just that. Like no contact. Just nice cardio still. But we digress. This isn't the Sports by Kazi podcast. So we're going to get back to business. So Lebern now, obviously working with local authorities, providing guaranteed rent. It's been running for the better part of 14 years now. Well, not Lebern, but the concept, and then Lebern for like the last sort of eight years.
Just over 10 years.
Just over 10 years. I guess explain to people that are not familiar with the model, what it is that you do.
So in a nutshell, we lease, we buy as well, but in a nutshell, we lease residential properties. And we use those properties for social housing, for emergency accommodation, temporary accommodation. We're going into the semi-independent accommodation as well. And in a nutshell, that's what it is. Like, I suppose it's no different now to what people would be doing with HMOs, I guess, or Airbnb service accommodation. So it's just like you're acquiring a property and you're deciding what you're going to do with it after. Right? That's the model. Some people do. As I said, Airbnb and different things. My model's always been working with the local authority.
And in terms of pitching to landlords to get their property on board, how do you like explain / sell the service to the landlord to acquire new properties?
So this is probably where we're quite unique, whereby landlords come to us. So our conversation is slightly different in the sense of maybe just positioning the landlord to make the right choice, and it might not be guaranteed rent, it might be one of our other services. So we're probably our thing is servicing our landlords or inquiries that come in that want guaranteed rent, opposing to maybe reaching out to estate agents or flyering to sort of we haven't had to do any of that. Our thing's always been inbound calls and inbound inquiries.
I think for a lot of people that are in similar industries, that's really their bottleneck of actually getting landlords to utilize their property in what would maybe could be considered a non-conventional means. So then in terms of, so that's what you do. In terms of how it works in practice, do you require any planning requirements? Are there any change of use requirements?
No, not at all. The only things that is important for us is the contract that we have. So we have to obviously be in control of the contract. We can't do that because they have a mortgage. So we have to do a lease, put us in position of being a landlord. And then from there, we just provide that to the local authority. So it's all residential to residential. We don't do HMOs, for example. So we won't change the unit into HMOs and rent room by room. So it's single units, and we're passing it on to a single family as well.
Oh, okay, so even in the semi-independent, that's still
The semi-independent's slightly different. That's new as well. So that's slightly different. And even then, there are some units that we can do the same concept, but that's a whole different business concept altogether.
And is it like important to you outside of the business to be providing accommodation for those that maybe are struggling, but wouldn't be able to get accommodation in the private rental sector?
Say that again.
So like, as your tenant archetype is like, I guess, that who are the type of people that you tend to house?
So 90% of our portfolio is probably emergency accommodation, right? So every day the local authorities that we have contracts with will give us a call and ask us, do we have any properties available, in a nutshell. And when we say yes, they reserve it. So our contract is directly with the local authority, and they'll pay us on at the end of the month, in essence, for the time that they've used that property. So I suppose it's quite similar to a Airbnb type situation, but just with the local authority.
Just solely with the local authority. So I guess my question is obviously people that need emergency accommodation, that, there's a word emergency there for a reason.
Yeah.
And I was saying, for you as a business, is it important that you're able to facilitate that for those in need?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, because I mean, even though we didn't necessarily, I'd be lying if I said I set out to have a social impact. But when I realized that working with the local authority, there was a model there. The additional value was then when I saw that we're helping people from, in essence, the same background that I grew up. I grew up from social housing on a council estate. So that demographic of person is also, by large, the demographic of people that is in our portfolio. And the stigma around those people, I've never really understood or embraced. Because I'm like, no, hold on. Like the people that I knew growing up, and which is all of my friends and myself and my family and so forth, the one thing that we took massive pride in was your home. I've never been in a situation where people are just like breaking the house, and some of the sort of things that you hear in connection to people on like housing benefit, for example, that's just never been my experience. So I have embraced that, and I do get an extra bit of value, knowing that I'm helping those people.
That's nice. So then you mentioned other services that Lebern provide, or other areas of the business. Do you mind touching on that briefly?
So we've got an eviction support service, and that's
from was it Southampton property?
100%.
That was still PTSD from the Southampton deal.
Everything leads back. That's exactly what that was. We've got an eviction support service. We have a maintenance sort of facility service. Those are our core. And then traditional property management, but that's in essence our core. And then we buy properties ourselves now and add that into the portfolio, or might do like small scale sort of conversion stroke developments. That's what we do.
Okay. And then one thing that I struggled with when I was in the space of that rent to rent, or was staffing. How have you managed to scale and been able to build a team that can deal at the level you've scaled?
You know what? It's systems, like automation, and I'm big on processes and systems and tech. So that's how we're able to deal with people that necessarily might not have had a lot of experience, and also, it wasn't necessarily like a property manager that's been in there for loads of time, and also in terms of how many properties they can deal with by one person. Right? So tech.
Have you got any processes, any software, any tech, any things that you would advise, like maybe someone that's starting out or someone that's trying to grow?
Definitely, as quickly as possible, have a CRM system, because data is so important, and information. Just having that one centralized place that you can do that. I use HubSpot. I mean, there might be others out there.
Listen, HubSpot, by the way, mention maybe a sponsor going forward. Just say,
yeah, there you go. You get used to all this stuff. But yeah, we use HubSpot for the CRM system. But then from a specific property management software, I won't plug any particular one. I'm actually changing the ones that I'm currently with.
You can mention them. No.
I
was only joking.
I'm actually changing them, so they might not be the best people. But yeah, we'll have a property management CRM, and then we have a general CRM system. We have a financial. We use Xero and QuickBooks across both of our things. What else do we use?
Yeah, that's nice.
Whatever we can use to make things
works
like,
for you.
Yeah.
That's good. So I guess doing a lot of different things. You've also said you transitioned into, said you do some developments. What type of developments have you done or are doing?
So I would say like,
or just investment in property as opposed to.
I'll say we're more like, or we're more investors rather than property developers, because that word and scale, to me, that's a very, to be a developer is a very broad thing. So I'd say I'm more of an investor. And the typical things that we would do is our bread and butter stuff is low leases, uh, small conversions, like 1 to 2 bed conversions, 2 to 3 bed conversions. But our stuff is pretty much, because it's also kind of in our ecosystem, it might just be like a property that we're managing. The landlord now wants to sell, so now we've just bought it, and nothing actually really happens. It just changes over the ownership.
I think that happens quite a bit in that, when you start a business, you see the opportunities in related industries. And particularly when you're building relationships with landlords, you're going to be their first point of contact when they want to sell, because you already deal with their primary asset.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's been our journey. That's been our journey. So for a long period of time, I'm trying to reach out more now, but everything was really about just like our ecosystem. Like, so it's like servicing our landlords, going through that journey. Probably all of the properties we had bought, apart from the one in Southampton, was like one of our clients that just was at the next stage of wanting to move on, or someone that wanted to sell quickly, so we was in a position, or we knew the information, so we could buy it. So that's always been the journey. Now we're trying to go into slightly bigger schemes. Then that's when we're looking at sort of commercial brokers and having those conversations to give us those opportunities.
And I guess what's next in terms of for you, in terms of goals for Lebern? Where do you want to take it? What are you looking at doing in terms of the near future?
Well, in the short term, the key things really that I'm not really involved operationally, but where I am is still quite heavily involved from a management standpoint, like overarching, and I want to build out the leadership team there. We've recently, when we started our maintenance side, we've got an opportunity where we're sort of maintaining 2,000 properties. So that's a big opportunity for us. So I suppose it's just, that's opened up a whole new category of conversation now, because as we build out that team to service that, it opens up more conversations around sort of development advice and that development conversation. That's quite interesting. And for us, it's just to continually be able to help landlords along that journey. But for my personal self, for it just to be from a strategic standpoint rather than an operational standpoint. And we're pretty much there, but that's the short term goal. The long term goal is, and it depends how long you want to look at, but the big corporate, like having a corporate space or corporate company, is kind of the vision for where I want to be.
What does a corporate company look like for you?
When I say corporate, you're naming the likes of like Knight Frank, JLL. So those are massive companies, like massive real estate businesses. So those are the companies.
That's what you look at as the long term.
Yeah, those like
that's what long term competition.
Yeah.
Eyes on them,
of course, because they're the leaders in the space, really, aren't they? So if you're looking in a corporate real estate space, then you have to be aware of what they're doing, which is massive.
And you touched on at the beginning about like prop tech, because I find prop tech really interesting in terms of property's great, but sometimes not so much in the business side of it, but like in terms of property development, investment, it can be quite slow. Whereas something like prop tech is where you see businesses with potentials, 10x, 100x, etc. What are you looking at in the prop tech space?
So we're looking to revolutionise the sort of residential sales conversation, like how people buy and sell property in the country.
Yes,
that's really what we're looking at innovating. And there's a lot of that process is very, as you said, archaic. It's very slow. There's not much innovation there, and we're looking to change that.
Can I make a request?
Go ahead.
I've got so many requests. Can I be part of the feedback room of things that we want to change?
100%. We're actually looking for, because the MVP of the platform is pretty much built, and we are looking for early adopters to go into the platform, and as you said, give us feedback so we can make that, because it's a platform really to empower agents. And there'll be loads of more information, because I've got to be careful of what I say.
I mean, can't have someone will just say, before you know it, there'll be a little number 2 coming out, instant competition. So you have to be careful. But I think anything, and we spoke about it earlier on with your journey, but anything that can solve a problem. If you go and speak to people in property, I'd say actually probably that's either number 1 or number 2. Number 1 and 2 is either, and they're closely, is either the planning process. And you can get in. I spoke to somebody yesterday who's been in planning for 14 years on one site, but also the process of purchasing, the fact that how long it takes, the fact that you still have to send hard copies of documents across, that you still have to, land registry sometimes has a backlog and it can take X amount of time to get things registered, and you're still going off everything that's just photocopied leases from however long. I think there's such an opportunity there that if somebody can find a way to streamline it, I think a lot of people will want to adopt.
I think that's the thing. Like when you talk about technology, there's a lot of solutions out there, or applications out there, but there's not many that's dealing with the big picture. They might be dealing with, as you said, like a CRM, it's PropTech, or how to do inventories or something, right? So those are all needed, but those are very, very specific. It's not really big picture. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for big picture changes, especially as you mentioned around planning, right? So there's loads of maybe companies that have data in one area and loads of someone else have data in another area, but it's really about maybe even companies coming together to have an open source place that can allow all of the information that they all have, be able to create a solution that really pushes things along. Because there's only a few ways that you can really reach some of the goals that the industry wants to reach, and technology is one of the big levers to be able to do that. Right, so there's loads of opportunities there.
We might actually have to get him out of the studio now. Can you go and work on that? Because a lot of us that are in property, that are waiting, obviously, for the whole process to be revolutionized, to be streamlined. So obviously, make sure that if you haven't already, go follow Lee, go ask him every week.
What's going on?
When
you launching, man? When you launching?
Exactly.
I'd love to come back on that and have like when we do launch, come and talk
definitely.
to you about it in more detail.
It'll be amazing. Like I said, I'm just going to be there with suggestions. I'll be there with lists. By the way, this solicitor did this. How can we solve this? This agent did this. I'm going to have my list ready and waiting.
Wicked, love it.
Outside of property, obviously you do a lot and have done a lot. How do you stay motivated?
I'm quite blessed that I've got a really, really good circle around me, like close friends that are high achievers, right? So there's always a level of, not necessarily competition, because that's not the word, but we all encourage each other, and you always see like our WhatsApp group is ridiculous in terms of not even just necessarily individual accolades, but it might just be things that like our kids are doing. You're like, wow, that's amazing. Like I'm good friends with like Tim and his son's like doing well in this karate, for example.
Now Tim is serious in his jiu-jitsu as well, right?
Like he's on the TV. Yeah. So there's always something going on in the group where you're just like, oh, well done, that's amazing. Like, and everyone's just always pushing the bar. Like, say it's another good friend of mine. He's doing so much important things in regards to the community and with the police. And you're like, what's going on here? So it's just like inundated with loads of things. So it's hard not to be motivated when you're around.
Because I think some people sometimes have like the reverse of that. When they see people doing really well, it like can be demotivating to some people, that you're like, if you're in a room and there's billionaires and X, Y, or Z, that sometimes it can feel a little bit not out of reach, but
okay.
And I think I've had to learn over time that it's a good place to be. Like I said, going to that meeting, and sometimes if I'm going to sit down with someone who's like just casually talking about, oh yeah, so we're going to build these 200 homes here, then we're going to do that. I'm always scratching my head like, oh, what have I been doing?
Got you.
But I think I've had to learn over time that it's really good to be able to be in a place where you can, like, it's even more valuable where you can soak up more knowledge than you can give out, but then still give it back at the same time.
Yeah, I think it's important to have a mix, right? I think it's always, I've been quite good at that, having a circle of people that's doing maybe even like better than me, a circle of people that is maybe not doing as good as me, is that are looking to me to help them, because then that makes you accountable, right? Because you're like, okay, well, this person's looking at me to kind of be responsible. I need to act a certain way. I need to carry myself a certain way. So there's a value there. So I think having both sides of that conversation is really important, because it allows you to, it should motivate you to stay on the right path.
And for some advice, it doesn't have to be property related, but just in terms of advice for people starting out, people kind of getting into their journey, whether it's as an entrepreneur, in work, like what advice would you give that you've seen that makes people be successful?
You know what? I think it's very individual, but it's about the constant pursuit to improve. That's it. Like, just always try to improve yourself. That's a very individual thing, but it's very noticeable, right? It's very noticeable when you see someone that takes pride in trying to improve themselves in whatever aspect it is, right? So like going to the gym, like someone might not go to the gym, but now this person wants to go to the gym. Oh, this person ran, I don't know, 2 minutes for 400 meters, but now they're trying to make it a little bit quicker, or they want to go a little bit further. Like that characteristic is key, and it shines through. And you can spot it over time.
Yeah, nah, because my videographer, when I met him, he showed me his stuff, and I was just like, what's this?
Right, look at the production.
Yeah, no, not this guy, sorry. This is someone else. But someone else, yeah, but I said, what's this? But every time he's like, okay, can I try again? Yeah. Can I come back? I've done this now. So it was never a case of that feedback was, they just don't like me. I am not good enough.
Yeah.
It was, okay, let me learn from that and be better. And I think, having that type of attitude is invaluable when it comes to being a success, because there's always going to be somebody better than you. Yes. There's always going to be somebody that you're better than, and always wanting to push to get to the next level.
Yeah.
I think that's great advice.
Yeah, it's very individualistic, because then, as you said, when you say about when you're in a room and someone might be so much higher than you in certain accolades, it doesn't matter if you've got the same thought process. If your thought process is just trying to improve yourself in whatever that conversation is, then you're actually both the same.
Interesting. And last question for you before we let you go, because yes, suit and tie, super busy. I know he's going to meet with the CEOs in the evening. Came to make me look dressed down.
No, I'm just like this just for you, man.
Okay, I appreciate you then. So, last question is, what does success look like for you?
Wow, good question. What does it look like for me? You know what? It probably changes now. So there's, because I think probably too much, right? So, and now I want to just concentrate more on the journey rather than the end goal. So I'm very much historically been about end goal, and this year I'm like, actually, let's concentrate on the journey. So for now, actually, the success for me is like, am I improving on a day-to-day basis for the things that I'm trying to do? That probably right now is my new mindset. If you asked me like a year ago, I'll give you all of the end goal, goal things that we're pushing for and what we're trying to do. But my thing now is just like, on a day-by-day basis, let's just be a little bit better. Let's just improve a little bit in that section. Let's just start that a little bit. Let's just do one more.
Hey, let's get that jab and that hook.
That's just right. Let's just do one more.
I hear you.
That's what success is for me. Like, am I just every day just doing a little bit more?
Amazing. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. I know you're busy. I like that the shoes were shined, the watch was shining, the tie was Windsor knotted, and everything was completely on point. It's been great having you on. And for people that want to connect with you, where can they find you? How can they interact?
Well, I'm on Instagram, I suppose. I'm terrible at LinkedIn, but I'm going to improve.
Yeah.
I should be probably on LinkedIn more than I am. But yeah, I'm on like Instagram.
Okay.
To be fair, most of the time I'm on stories chatting nonsense, so there's probably not much reason to follow me.
It's always good to connect with people, broaden your horizons, broaden your circle. We're going to make sure that we put all of your details for people that want to reach out to you in the description of today. Hopefully you've enjoyed this episode. It has been another episode of the Property by Kazi podcast. Make sure you subscribe, like the video. If you've got any questions, let me know in the comment section, and we will be back same time, same place with another amazing episode next week.